All right, we're moving to section 5 now. And as always, and we're building and things are getting a little more complicated as we get into there. So section 5 is where we're going to start solving inequalities. And this time, now your variables are going to be on both sides of the inequality symbol. So that's going to add a whole new layer of complication, so to speak, and we'll work through just a few examples and turn you loose on the assignment. You'll notice on your checklist that actually I gave you 2 assignments. I want you to do just the workbook page first and get that checked to make sure that you've got the hang of it, and then there'll be another assignment, a book assignment, that will follow, just to give you some more practice. So let's start with this first example. Okay, the big thing that you're going to do today, and it's very similar to the rules that I always tell you for solving equations or inequalities, is the first thing you need to do is find the variable, which sounds like kind of a ridiculous thing to say. You're just going to look at it and say, duh, there's x or y or m or whatever variable it is. However, at this point, you're going to see the variable all over the place. So you need to be conscious and aware of that. And then you're going to have to use all of the legal strategies and moves according to our properties to get that variable alone on one side of the inequality. It really does not matter which side you get the variable on. It's personally your choice. But I'm going to show you just a few examples, and we'll tackle them a couple of different ways, and then you choose which way you prefer to solve. So let's start with this first one. Jot this one down. Negative 14x plus 17 is greater than 8x minus 27. Okay, now I'm actually going to tackle this 2 ways. All right, so here's going to kind of be the first method. All right, and in the first method, this would be, let's see, this would be the person who always likes to have the variable on the left. Okay, now you might think that's actually me, but I actually have more issues with negatives than I do with it on the left. So this is going to be always get the variable on the left method. All right, here's your inequality. I say, gosh, I have an x here, I have an x here. I always want my variable on the left, so the first thing I'm going to do is work at getting all of my x terms on one side. So I'm going to subtract 8x on both sides. Yay, hooray, this goes away and goes to 0. This becomes negative 22x plus 17 is greater than, now I'll just have negative 27. All right, now eliminate the 17 by subtracting that from each side of the inequality. This wipes out and goes to 0 because those are exact opposites. And I get negative 44. Then I say I'm almost there. I'm going to subtract, or I'm sorry, divide both sides by negative 22. And now I have to be careful. All right, yes, I'm dividing, but I'm dividing by the negative. So I want you to immediately think, boop, 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 boop. I have to flip the inequality symbol. Now make that less than. This becomes a positive 1x. That's exactly what I wanted. This becomes positive 2. Okay? And typically, once you get your inequality, then I tell you, all right, quick sketch a graph so that you have a visual representation of all the solutions to this inequality. You would have an open circle at 2, and you'd shade to the left. And please make sure you fill in your arrowhead. As you are starting to turn in homework, some of you aren't quite as obvious at filling in the arrowhead there, so please make sure you do that. I'll be checking for that. Open circle. Okay? Now, that is the way you can tackle it if you always want to put your variable on the left side. Some people, like me, have major issues with keeping track of negatives. And now that we have this added thing to watch out for, about how I always have to pay attention, if I have to flip the inequality symbol or not, oh, sometimes that might just seem too icky. So it's perfectly legal to take a look at this inequality again, and instead of subtracting 8x from each side, if you would rather be Polly the positive person, then you would add 14x to each side. And when you do that, this time the variable on this side is eliminated because they're exact opposites. I don't have to flip anything, but now when I combine my like terms on this side, that's 22x, and I have minus 27. Now my variable's here. I'm going to work to isolate this guy by, first of all, adding 27 to each side of my inequality. If you want to put that bar underneath there, you know, that's a good habit, so you make sure you're watching on each side. Opposites are going to 0. This time I have 22x on the right. I have positive 44 on the left. It remains a greater than symbol. And when I divide by 22, I don't have to worry about flipping any inequality symbol because I'm dividing by a positive value. The only thing that's different here is my variables on the right. Now I've told you I tend to have issues with this, so I simply rewrite it with the variable on the left, making sure that I have my pointed end at x like it is here. And you say, hey, you get the same exact answer. Well, yes, of course I did. I just went about it a different way. You decide which way you want to go about tackling things. You have lots of options here. The thing you have to watch out for is if you end up dividing by a negative like you did here, then you're going to have to watch and make sure you flip the inequality. All right, put a squiggle line here and let's try next example. Ooh, here we go. 3 times the quantity in parentheses, 5n plus 6, is greater than 8n minus 7 plus 2n. All right, now hold your horses. Before you do anything else, we're going to do some simplification here. First of all, I'm recommending we distribute the 3 on the left-hand side of the equation, or inequality. 15n and plus 18. Okie dokie. On this side, I don't have to distribute, but I want you to notice that you have some like terms here that you should be combining. 8n and a plus 2n gives you 10n. And I still am subtracting 7, or think of that as negative 7. Now I've gotten it cleaned up this far. Get your variable on one side. In this case, we can probably make positive Polly and Louis the lefty, always wanting the variable on the left. Everybody can be happy here because we can simply subtract 10n from each side of my inequality. That goes to 0. Nice. These two combine to be 5n. I'll bring my plus 18 greater than negative 7. Now we're cooking, and you just keep continuing on getting that variable isolated. This goes to 0. I now have plain old 5n. This is negative 25. And I say, sweet. Divide by 5. 5 divided by 5 goes to 1. And I'm exactly where I wanted. N is by itself, or it has a coefficient of positive 1. On this side, I evaluate that to be negative 5. And now you stop and pause and look at this and say, flip or not to flip. In this case, do not flip it. Leave it as a greater than symbol because you are dividing by positive 5. So it stays the same. Please be sure to graph it. If the directions say graph, let's see. Here's 0. Negative 5 is down here somewhere. I want a greater than relationship illustrated here. So I'm going to put an open circle at 5, or negative 5. Shade in to the right. Please make sure you fill in the arrowhead to indicate everything to infinity that way. Done. You know, you should probably check this to make sure. And the easiest value to check all the time is 0. 0 is the best thing in the world to check. Okay? Let's do that. I am saying by looking at my graph here that 0 is a solution. So when I plug 0 in everywhere you saw F, and let me just highlight where those are here, or saw N. So, oops, where did my highlighter go? Highlighter, yellow. So that should be right here is an N, here is an N, here is an N. If I substitute a value of 0 there, my remaining relationship should still be greater than. So let's just go ahead and do a little check here. Check. If I plug in 0, I'm going to have 3 in parentheses 5 times 0 plus 6. And technically, that should be greater than 8 times 0 minus 7 plus, ooh, running out of room, 2 times 0. Let's see what happens. In parentheses here, 5 times 0 is 0, and I get 3 times 6, which is 18. That's supposed to be bigger than, okay, 8 times 0 is 0, and then a minus 7, and then plus 2 times 0, which is 0. 0 minus 7 plus 0, well, that's negative 7. Is 18 greater than negative 7? Yes, sirree, Bob, it worked. Your answer is correct. All right, let's take a look at one situation that's a word problem so you can see how to set this up. Keith is racing his little sister Patty and has given her a 15-foot head start. Well, that sounds like a nice older brother. Patty runs at 5 feet per second, and he is chasing her at a speed of 8 feet per second. For how long can Patty stay ahead of Keith, sorry. So here's the thing. First of all, think of it this way. This last question is where your inequality comes from. I want to know for how many seconds. So I'm going to let S stand for seconds, because that's what I'm asking about. How long, how many seconds will Patty be greater than, or in other words, stay ahead of Keith? Now, these aren't variables. I should just probably write their names. How many seconds will Patty be ahead of Keith? Now, let's go back here and look at what's going on. Remember, Patty had a 15-foot head start. Okay? So whatever she's running at, she gets a plus 15 here. And she runs at 5 feet times every single second, okay? Plus she has the 15-foot head start. Keith runs faster, but he doesn't have a head start. He just gets 8 feet times every second, okay? Okie dokie. Well, let's see what's going on here. You know, in this case, I like to keep everything positive, because if I subtracted 8s, then I'd have a negative here, I get 0 here, blah. I don't like that. I instead am going to subtract this 5 times s from each side of my inequality, because then this is going to go to 0, and on this side I'm going to have 3s. Oh, look how nice these numbers work out. I divide both sides by 3. 3 over 3 is 1, and 1 times s is s. That's what I wanted. Here I get 5. Now, hold on. First of all, I've got a problem with reading stuff backwards. You know that by now. So I'm going to rewrite this with the variable on the left and the 5 over here on the right. The pointy thing is pointing to my variable. So this says my seconds have to be less than 5. So it says, for how long can Patty stay ahead of Keith? Well, it sounds to me like Patty is ahead of Keith. For under 5 seconds or less than 5 seconds. It sounds to me like once 5 seconds hit, they must be exactly tied. Does that make sense? Check it out. Remember what Patty's rate was? Patty was 5 times the seconds. Let's put 5 seconds in, and then she had that 15-foot head start. Let's see, that's 25 plus 5. She'd be at 40 feet from the starting point at exactly 5 seconds. Keith, at exactly 5 seconds, was running 8 feet per second times 5 seconds. He's at 40. So see, at 5 seconds, they're exactly equal. After that 5 seconds, Keith is going to continue on and he'll be ahead of her. So before that 5 seconds, or under the 5 seconds, that's when Patty is ahead. There you go. All right, so here's what I would like you to do. The first assignment that I want you to do is in your workbook. This is for section 3-5. You'll have to look up the page number. I can't recall off the top of my head, although I think it's like page 31 maybe. Go ahead and find this page in there. Do these problems first, okay? Then get them checked out, and then after that, and there are a couple word problems in there, then what I want you to do is go ahead and move on to the book assignment for this section, which is going to be on page 197 to 199, and do these selected problems. So first, do the workbook page. Get that checked, make sure it's accurate, and then from there, then continue on with this assignment. Good luck!